coming on that. In the meantime, Hillary Clinton defending her private email setup at the State Department, or at her home, rather. Even with the controversy still unfolding, a new Wall Street Journal op-ed today by Bill McGurn says the American people are overlooking the most disturbing part of this whole thing, he writes. Part of that says this, quote, "It isn't so much that Mrs. Clinton set up a personal server so that she would not be accountable the way normal political appointees are held accountable. It's that no one in government stopped her." Louise Mensch is the founder of the news website Heat Street, and Julie Roginski is a Democratic strategist and Fox News contributor. Welcome to both of you.
Good morning.
It is a very strong piece by William McGurn in this morning's Wall Street Journal, and it basically says that, you know, the fact that there were two IT people who tried to speak up about this server and say, hey, I don't really think that's the way this is supposed to work. And they were told to hush and that they were never to speak of it again, is the quote in that original report. What's your takeaway, Julie, from Bill's overarching theme here?
He's got a good point, but my takeaway is, and I hate to say this, but I've worked in government. Louise, you're an MP, so you know this better than anybody. This happens all the time when people don't want to speak up to the boss, where you're told to do what the boss wants, whether it's in industry or in politics or in any other walk of life. For the most part, what the boss says goes. And if this is what you're outraged about, I don't think, by the way, somebody who's opposed to what she did with the emails, this is the most outrageous part. Because to me, unfortunately, this is just the way life works. You don't ever gainsay the boss, whether you like it or not. It's really, especially in Washington, how things work.
Sad situation. He also talks about the IRS, the fact that there's still no accountability for the groups that were targeted by the IRS, that nobody lost their job over that. He goes on to talk about the Justice Department and Loretta Lynch and her meeting with Bill Clinton on the tarmac. Louise, you have watched government from the inside in Great Britain. What is your take?
I never thought that Hillary Clinton would be prosecuted because at the end of the day, somebody had to ask this very obvious question. If it's a crime to do what she did, then the president knew about it. The moment the FBI swooped on her, they would have had to ask the really difficult question, which is obviously President Obama knew this was going on. It goes right to the top. And that's why we can see such egregious abuses as Loretta Lynch being right there, the same plane as Bill Clinton, and yet nothing happens. Talk about that they once used to call the Clintons the Teflon Clintons. I think it's Teflon Obama, the IRS, the VA, now this. Nothing sticks to him. Is there any universe in which the president didn't know what the Secretary of State was doing? He knew.
Well, why would he know? I mean, in fairness, she's in Foggy Bottom. She has her own operation going. She's Hillary Clinton, and this is actually not a defense of her, it's a defense of him. She's got her own thing going on. Why would Barack Obama even think and contemplate that she had a private email server in her basement when he's the president?
Never CC'd on any of the same email with your Secretary of State?
He may have been, but he may have been. Well, first of all, I don't think he actually emails. But secondly, even if that's the case, how would he know there was a private server?
He fought to hold on to his BlackBerry when he became president.
But how was it a private server? How did he know it was a private server? I mean, you can't just
her
say
email address is hrc@gmail.com.
She was running the private server. How does he know it wasn't run out of the State Department? These are things you're making assumptions about him. Look, I'm not defending her behavior, but there's no way that Barack Obama is thinking about the IT components of what any of his cabinet.
But all I'm saying is that this piece by Bill McGurn raises these larger questions about why each one of these investigations eventually got cut off at the knees. And as Louise points out, it raises an interesting point about maybe why.
Nothing is getting close to the president, and that's why none of these investigations ever stood a chance.
But look, if you're Bill McGurn, and I fully respect that he may be somebody who, if the head of his organization, the very top, the boss of bosses, says to him, Bill McGurn, I want you to focus on this and not on that, if he doesn't agree, he'll resign and he'll say, forget it, I'm out of here. Most people don't. And whether you like that or not, that's the way it works in corporations. If your boss tells you to do something, you typically do it. That may not make you a good person.
But here's the major difference there.
America deserves better. This is law enforcement.
Well,
America deserves.
Yes.
Let's uphold the law. The president swears an oath to the Constitution. If you are the FBI, if you're sworn to uphold the law, then you have to be brave. You know, Nixon, one thing happened to him in the imperial White House of Obama. He can do anything he likes and get away with it because we cannot trust our top law enforcement officials to enforce the law without fear or favor.
You're talking about two different things. You're talking talking about the FBI, and what I think he's talking about in this editorial is people who work for her staff.
He talks about all three. He talks about the IRS,
staff.
he talks about the Department of Justice, and he talks about
but
let me go back to one point here, because there's a very important distinction that needs to be made between corporations and between the United States government. Corporations have a fiduciary responsibility to shareholders. That's a very different situation than the taxpayer to whom the fiduciary responsibility is held. And the taxpayer is the person that needs to be answered to. You don't have that ability as part of the government to completely cut people out.
It's depressing. Ordinary people looking at this show are going to be depressed. We recite them scandal after scandal. Has anybody been held accountable? The head of the IRS taking the fifth in front of Congress. Has anything happened to anybody? No, because nobody is allowed to get near President Obama. And that's okay. He's enlightened self-interest. He's looking out for himself. The White House is looking out for themselves. The real scandal here is that we cannot trust America's top law enforcement officials to do their jobs.
Julie?
Well, all I will say is this. When you work, and I, by the way, don't disagree with anything you're saying by the way Washington works, but the reality is this. When you work on Capitol Hill, there are separate elevators for senators and for congressmen that little people like you and I cannot enter. Even staff can't enter without them. When you have a hierarchy set up in Washington, when people are put on such a pedestal that if you're the Secretary of State or you're a congressman, even a congressman, and you're treated like, you know.
But you know what?
That should change.
It may change. Of course it should. I hate to say this. It's not going to change under any party. It's the way the system is set up, and it's awful. I agree with you. It's awful.
But you have to raise holy hell when you know that that's what's happening.
Well,
and we can't stand by and just say that's okay. As American citizens, we have to ask that it be held to the highest possible standard, because that's what it's all about.
Don't disagree.
Julie, thank you very much. Louise, thank you. Great having you both here.